which direction do you think it's going? I don't know how people get to specified products nowadays, because if you want something, you have to see it, especially when you're dealing with a decorative item. You want to get the feel of the material, the how the light interacts with the design. So how do you think the market has changed?
I think the market has changed, and what we've seen actually is a let's say a domestication of commercial office spaces. The drive has been to make them feel a little bit more homely, and so we see quite a lot more decorative product now than we probably have done in the commercial environment. And so, yeah, there is a need to see product, and luckily, and Paola, who works with me, looks after a network of 100 or so dealers across the UK. So we have a mixture of dealers who are more consumer focused, and then we have some also who are quite commercially focused, and then of course we have our space in Leonard Street, which allows us to display both the architectural and the decorative side to products. But I think, yes, you're right, it is absolutely essential for those products to be seen.
I think probably the main problem is that decorative lights are subjective, and it's almost like looking at a piece of art or a tapestry or something. It's not like technical lighting where you're looking at just technical aspects. And I guess that's where the problem lies. And also the problem lies because people were so changeable in their mindset, aren't they? Maybe one day they like it, the next minute they don't. I know from my perspective, specifying it is difficult just because you want them to almost say straight away, yeah, it's exactly what I need. Can I have it? Yes, you can see it here, and then jobs are good. But it's never that. The process is never that simple. So I guess what you're doing is a public service in a way, because otherwise we wouldn't have these almost pieces of art as lighting. And I'd like to draw a parallel to Italy here, if I may, where I think they have a lot more access to lighting shops and a lot more access to maybe seeing the products. I don't know if that's true or not.
Quite often what we see is within lighting design concepts, whether it's from a lighting design or from an architect, the decorative pieces are quite often for the just left as a note that for the customer to select.
How dare they?
Quite different ends up being in the space than what might have been imagined, originally. But we do see that quite a lot. But we also do see lighting designers specifying decorative elements. Let's say lighting designers, but actually architects as well.
Because one of the surprising aspects that I found during my article for this topic is I initially assumed that everyone was specifying, lighting designers were specifying decorative lighting without any second thought. But it turns out that perhaps logically they don't do it because they can't bill for it in the same way that they want to do it, but because the customer is maybe it's so difficult to make up your mind because it's so personal, that it goes by the wayside. So the question is, how do you bill for something like that? Because it's almost, you can imagine a customer saying, hang on, I'm paying you to go and look at stuff and you've given me 5 and I'm still not happy. Can you get me some more, please? So how do you, is there any way can you give around that?
Sort of maybe a slightly similar process to what happens within the furniture specification world, where there's a certain point, there's a walk around, let's say, between different showrooms and different suppliers and whatever, so that the end user, let's say, be they a private individual or a commercial entity, can actually make the final selection and go through the approval process. You're right though that there is a very there's a much more emotive aspect to the private individual's purchase compared to a corporate entity purchasing. So it is important to be able to touch, feel, and as I'll go back to what Paola said earlier, which was to also understand the story behind the design, so that the customer ultimately can make that choice, understanding all the aspects of how the product came to life, and I say that for Floss, but I also know it's important for Louis Poulsen, who we also look after. But both brands have very strong ties with designers, very strong product histories, and with that, very strong stories for each product. I think it is a very emotive element of any project. When we're talking about architectural, then mostly things tend to be stuck into a ceiling and whatever, or maybe just suspended or fixed just below it. But they're not particularly emotive products, and I think when we're talking about decorative, it is very much emotive, and if we go if we look at both brands, for instance, Floss and Louis Poulsen, they've spent a lot of time selecting the designers that they want to work with, and those designers bring some really fantastic ideas, and they have different philosophies, but they have quite a similar approach in terms of their design culture and design history. Let's say in terms of always working with design professionals to drive to an end product, and that is very, very heavily ingrained within Floss's DNA, and has been since since it started. With some just amazing collaborations. So with that, you do end up with these amazing stories. We had Giovanna Castiglione in the showroom talking about her father's work in January, and it's just really amazing to understand where he got his ideas from, what inspired him, what drove him, and seeing the end results as a product. And if you're just seeing that as an object and you don't understand how it came to life, I think you miss some of the quality.
So just to finish off, I mean, where do you think the market's going in the future, given that? So you said previously that the decorative element is entering more into office spaces, but obviously there's a conundrum there, because there aren't that many places where you can see these products apart from yourself, and you haven't got everything. So how do you marry those two elements? Where, I mean, what's for the future? Is it about education for England? Oh, I can't believe I said that.
And I think our design culture is a slightly odd one, in the sense that if you look at the World Architecture 100, generally on an annual basis, there's 25% of the entries who are from the UK. I think if you look at product design, if you look at architecture, if you look at interiors, and just to the same extent lighting design, the UK has a immensely strong design culture within its own segment. When you move out of that segment, the sort of the design, the overall general design culture is definitely not as strong as Italy, and I can understand that there are cultural differences, but we have such a strong architecture, design, interiors, product design culture. It's just strange that we don't have. It's not. We don't promote it, I think, within the country nearly enough.
I can draw a parallel to wine, actually, because in Italy, you drink a glass of wine and you could discuss a glass of wine, and you'll know about the producer perhaps, and you know where it comes from. In England, if you did that, I think certainly some places, London, they'd kick you out of the pub and chase you down the street, because you just don't, you know, it's not. And it's the same thing with design. You know, I think probably maybe we're a bit reserved. We don't want to appear to be immodest, perhaps. I bet in Italy, it's not even about saying, I'm clever, look, I know about wine. It's about just a general topic of conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, I think. It's how we approach things. We don't want to appear we want to appear to be modest, because I think British are quite modest generally, but then there's nothing wrong about talking about design in terms that are, you know, I suppose you could call it, beautiful products that we love.
There is, I think, a lot more potential for decorative lighting within all sorts of different environments. I think, just going back to one of your previous questions, Chris, you know, how do we see things going? And I think we've seen certainly within France a move to release products that are probably a little bit more commercial. Even though they're decorative, they're probably a little bit more commercial in their scale than maybe they are domestic. So that's certainly happened over probably, what would you say, Paola, the last 4 years? We've seen those changes. That doesn't mean that they're not releasing things that are of a domestic scale either. But we've definitely seen a shift. We've definitely seen a shift to having more commercially viable products for as decorative elements.
Excellent. Thank you both very much for your time, and I'm going to stop recording now. So I say ciao, arrivederci, and see you later.
See you. Brilliant. Thank you very much.